You are now listening.
You are now listening
to the Black Male Educators Alliance podcast.
Lifting our voices.
Lifting our voices.
Are back. Welcome to Lifting Our Voices, a BMEA podcast. Welcome to December. Gentlemen, we made it to December of
December 2nd.
Almost the finish line of this year. Almost.
I'm looking forward to 2021, man.
I sure hope so.
Right.
So, the last 2 weeks, I would say, were less eventful than the first 2 weeks of November. So I hope everybody got an opportunity over the holiday to get a moment to relax, take a deep breath, rest and recuperate before we get back to this sprint right before the next break. But, talk to us. How's everybody doing?
I'll kick it off. I'm doing pretty well. I had a little bit of a scare over the break. My son was having some breathing issues. I didn't mention this to any of y'all yet. He was having some breathing issues to the point where he was like wheezing really badly. And we ended up taking him to the hospital at like 4 a.m. one night. They tested him. He did not have COVID, thankfully, but he did have bronchitis. So they gave him a prescription, and he was doing a lot better. You'll probably see him, running here at some point. You know how that go. But he's doing better. But it was a scare, but he's doing good, thankfully. And so that happened over the break last week. But
I don't know about you guys. I haven't been in a hospital during the pandemic. Because what was the hospital scene like?
Oh, it was interesting. So only one parent could go back.
Okay.
So I let my wife go. Just because I had the moment. I could have went because my son he close to both his parents, right? He probably wanted
to go ahead, Chris. You can say it.
Well, he close to both of us, right? But I knew if I would have went, my wife would have been texting me every 30 seconds, literally, what they saying, and I just didn't want to deal with that. So I was be able to be more calm and just get the updates as she fed them to me. Yeah. And we ended up leaving about 6 a.m. So it worked out. But yeah, only one parent could go in. Of course, they had to take your temperature and all that kind of stuff. But there wasn't no one at the hospital at the time, really. So emergency was pretty empty, and they were able to get them in and out. So that was good.
Good. Yeah. Mike, what have you been up to?
Man, Thanksgiving break was good, man. Just relaxation. Snow came first of the month, so dealing with that. But I'm good though, just working, and I'm glad I was able to relax over the break. Get my eat on, my grub on, and I'm good otherwise.
Good, Curtis.
Yeah, good week, man. I threw down in the kitchen, a little something.
What's your go-to for Thanksgiving?
Man, I cook whatever you name it. That's a song. Whatever you name it. No, I I did sweet potato pies is my thing. I'm
really.
Yeah, I can go in. Really. Yeah, I'm gonna have to have y'all taste it one day. I do my famous fried chicken. I can fry chicken. I ain't want no dry turkey.
I was about to ask you, did you do
I
turkey?
My chicken. Y'all know my chicken is classic. You can fry turkey, you can bake it. It's still gonna be dry. I don't care what nobody say. It's still dry. But it was good. Good time to rejuvenate. Spend time with the boys, with my sons. It's good stuff.
I had the opportunity to deep fry, not a whole turkey, but some turkey legs and some turkey wings. And to your point, Curtis, I wouldn't say it was so dry, but it wasn't chicken. It just wasn't.
It's just not.
But also for those of you who don't know, I'm a big Baltimore Ravens fan. We've been dealing with some nonsense, so I'm fresh off of a L. But it was a good fight. We don't take moral victories over here on this side, but it was a good fight. So Thanksgiving week is officially over now.
I'm actually proud that you're here, Jerry. I was worried,
You should have been.
Me and Curtis texting on the side, Jerry, depending on how this game go, he may not be able to, come to the show.
I told Curtis earlier if he went on a field goal kick, it was going to be a different podcast tonight. But we're all good. We're set, recalibrated. We're ready to go. So we got a lot going on in this episode. We got 3 guests today.
We do. They bringing that heat today.
4 guests.
We got 4.
So for everybody who is tuning in, this is going to be a great show for you to engage. Please comment. We'll be able to see your comments as we go throughout the show and incorporate those in. If you have questions, please ask. But I think we got to get going because we got a lot to cover. Yeah. And so I'm gonna turn it over to you, Curtis.
All right. So our first guest, very excited to introduce Dr. David Kirkland, who's the executive director of the NYU Metropolitan Center for Research and Equity and Transformation of Schools. He's also been described as an activist, an educator, cultural critic, and an author. A leading national scholar and advocate for educational justice. Dr. Kirkland is from Detroit, born and raised, and I'm sure he'll speak to Detroit in a few. He's also his scholarship explores a variety of equity-related topics: school climate, discipline, school integration and choice, culture and education, on and on and on and on. I had the privilege to work with him closely, and I told him this a couple of years. I don't know if it was last year or something, but he was I talk a lot about mentorship, and but I've had a lot of women that have like guided me and been that steering guidance for me. He's been a one male that's been consistently a mentor and support to me. So I am super excited to have him join us today. And you guys are going to learn a lot from this. I mean, he's passionate. I get hyped because he gets hyped. So let's welcome Dr. David Kirkland.
Much, Kurt. Appreciate you. What's up, fellas?
How you doing, man?
How you doing?
Glad to be here tonight.
We're definitely glad to have you. And let's go ahead and just jump right in. Quick anecdote. I got my Michigan State sweater on because that's where I met you, Dr. Kirkland, way back. I don't know if you even remember back when I was a high schooler before I even got to Michigan State. So it's definitely, you definitely were an example and inspiration to me then. And it's, definitely great to have worked with you in schools in my career and also here once again on the BMEA podcast. But like we said, let's jump right in. So I was reading your book, A Search Past Silence, The Literacy of Young Black Men. And you posed a rhetorical question. I think it was rhetorical. How can teachers excite the potentials within Black men to release the vast energies of their literacies without first understanding them and their ways with words? And you give a deep story on there, and your cousin, I think it was your grandfather as well. But from your experience as a Black man and a practitioner, what should a teacher understand about Black boys when trying to engage them in literacy classrooms?
Thanks for that question, Chris. Let me just say, I met Chris a long time ago too. You were a high school student, and the thing that I remember about you is that I knew that you would be about this work and that you would be in this work for a long time. So I'm glad that we can just reconnect, commune, and continue to break bread and be about this work, because it will take us in order to move that work forward. And I mean all of us in order to move it forward. Well, the first thing that people need to know, or teachers need to know in order to excite the potential of Black boys, is that our babies aren't broken, that the boys aren't broken, right? But it's too often the systems that are broken, and that we haven't created or designed the necessary systems that are most responsive to us. And we continue to perpetuate this narrative, which is a false narrative, that something is wrong with Black men, that we need to be fixed, that there's something that is deficit about us, that we are, some type of skewed or distorted version of what a human can be, when in fact it's not us. And so often it's the system. And constantly when you get that message from external sources or external forces, the message begins to, create something within you that's not true or actual either. Within teachers too, who see us with distorted lenses or distorted visions. They need to see us for who we are. They need to see us for whole, and not, seek to change us, not seek to, make us conform to something that they want us to be, but see that potential is there, and it's up to the system, to be designed in order to release that potential, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Dr. Kirkland, I met you when I first moved to Detroit, started working in the schools, and you came to our school actually to speak. And I know you've done a lot of work around transforming schools and dealing with inequities in schools. My question is, what are some inequities you are still seeing that's happening today? And what are some things that, schools can do now to kind of further improve the situation they have?
Yeah, we're still kicking out our babies, Black, Indigenous, people of color baby students at disproportionate rates. Black men are 3 times more likely to be suspended than their white male counterparts. But check this out. Black girls are 6 times more likely to be kicked out than their, white female counterparts. And this narrative is an extended one, right? It's elastic. It's been this way. So we need to do something about it. I think that we still perpetuate a curriculum that does not necessarily see our kids shine, right? Our babies go to school and they learn to hate themselves. They learn to hate their language. They learn to hate their skin color. They don't necessarily learn to love their history or their homes, right? We got people who they'll go to school and they'll learn that the language that their mother says, I love you in is wrong and broken. So imagine that relationship that they're having with their mother, their grandmother, when their grandmother says, like my grandmother said to me, I love me some you. And when you go to school and the teacher is telling you that that is wrong, right? And so the types of things that we're continuing to see, like in terms of disparity, is that, our babies are still experiencing a level of racial violence within school that we haven't necessarily done everything we can to absorb.
So appreciate that. I'm Jerry. I haven't met you. I have attended a PD.
Jerry, I'm trying to wonder how you're a Raiders fan living in Detroit.
I grew up in Ravens. Grew up in Maryland, so that's what it is. And I'm going to leave the Ravens alone, though. Right now, I'm not ready to really talk about what's going on there. But in a system that we know is not always prepared to honor the literacy skills our students bring in, skills in general our students bring in, but also their culture. How can teachers design and deliver lessons that find value in what our students are bringing to school, while also meeting the needs of the curriculum and the standards?
Yeah, I think there's a more complex conversation that needs to be had. There's a conversation about whether or not the standards that we uphold are standards that can actually hold us and hold our babies, and whether or not we need to, challenge the standards and, rethink what those standards and those standardized principles are within education. That's a deeper conversation. I think that we've taken as value and valuable a set of principles that are not necessarily valuable, right? So we need to have that conversation about what we value, why we value it, and whether or not those things we value actually value our babies, or reinforce this idea that they are expendable. But besides that, like given a world where we have to conform to a set of standards and benchmarks that have been given to us, the best that we can do is to participate, with our young people. I believe that those who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. That those who are implicated by a decision should be involved in that decision-making process, right? In order to get that done, we have to listen to them. And we have to reconcile the fact that we do not listen to them is because that people who look like us, aren't always listened to. We don't necessarily value listening to, people who come from communities of color simply because they come from communities of color. And when we when we don't listen to them, we begin to lose that community cultural wealth, or what my colleague Louis Moore has called funds of knowledge that are embedded within those communities. So we have to listen to them, and we have to dare to partner with them, right? And what I mean by partnering with them is, helping them to think about with us what the problems of practice are that we face, and helping them to, solve the equations of inequity and inequality, that we have all been ladled with, right, in order to carry that baggage together. And the final, kind of like 2 pieces is that we have to give them a space where they can experience education as a site of healing, because to be sure, our babies are hurting for so many reasons, but also as a place to experience education as a site of joy. Too often, too many of our young people go to school and they experience education as a site of what my colleague Michael Dumas has called suffering. The question that I have is, how can they instead experience schooling, their education, as a site of joy, where our babies can smile as they learn, where the heartbeat of learning, beats a little faster because they're doing it together and they're doing it with other people, that they are excited about. One reason that we've lost these babies, and we've lost them so much, is because we've said that education for a Black, Indigenous, student of color body, it has to be done with shackles. It has to be done with fetters. My question is, can we unfetter, learning? Can we, in some ways, take away or remove the chains of, joy and pleasure and satisfaction that should come with education for our babies? We got these young kids, they're sitting in front of Call of Duty all day. Why? Because they're having fun. Well, they can sit in our classrooms all day too if we make those sites of joy where they heal, where they understand that they have a stake in it, where they know that they've been listened to, and that we create systems that are most responsive to who they are.
Man, I think you made a number of great points, but I think also caters towards sort of our K-12 space. And our last question, I know we got like another minute. If you can just, oftentimes I think what's left out of this conversation is the role that higher ed plays in this work. Can you speak to what you think that role would be in either in the preparation or the support of our K-12 system?
Yeah, I mean, we've done a horrible job in higher ed when it comes to, preparing teachers to work within our communities. And that is because most of the people who teach teachers don't come from our communities. And many of them are still scared to go into our communities. And so many carry biases about our communities. They don't see us as rich or wealthy. They don't see our kids and their parents as resources for learning and opportunity. So we need to demand more from the higher education institution, and we need more, Black, Indigenous, scholars of color to populate that institution so that we can get better results for our children and for our babies. So we got a lot of work to do in higher education. It's been a problem and not a solution when it comes to education in places like Detroit.
Man, so man, I appreciate that. That's as always, you leave us with some gems and some things to definitely think about. So I want to thank you for your time and always the work that you do across this country. And definitely appreciate it and invaluable work. So thank you, man, for your time. Thank you for always representing the D. And just thank you for representing BMEA as always.
Always. Thank you so much, family.
All right, appreciate it. Take care.
Appreciate you.
Are you not entertained?
Man, we're kicking it off right. Man, we have some heavy hitters on it. Man, we got people bringing, man.
We got to sustain it.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
We're going to sustain it.
Well, let's keep it moving.
All right. Hold on one second.
I'm like, come on, bro. You the organizer of this. What's up?
Sometimes when you organize it, man, I'm on page 1 of my notes, and I'm like, we on the page 2 now. Yeah, we have notes. Yeah, we are organized system over here. So I'm excited because when Curtis and I and the team got together to discuss this episode, we wanted to be able to hit you, the listener, the viewers, in so many different ways. So we're excited to bring this next expert to the show, Mrs. Kristin Venier. And I'm gonna bring her on in 1 second. She's probably wondering, okay, bring me on. I'm gonna bring her on in 1 second, but I want to just intro her first. She is a director of curriculum for ELA and elementary literacy, and she's very skilled. And we wanted to bring her on to be able to help our parents that's listening, our teachers, who want to know what are some tangible ways in which we can help increase literacy skills in our young learners from all over. So let's bring her on right now. I'm introducing to some and presenting to others, Miss Kristin Venier. Kristin, how you doing?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Welcome, what's going on, Kristin?
Thanks for being here.
So we're gonna jump right in. So I hope you're ready. Kristin, you are an expert, so all you're doing is showing us your expertise. Please tell our listeners just the top 3 tips for developing literacy skills in young learners. What are those top 3 skills?
Thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, as parents and educators, there are a lot of things that we hear about literacy, and I think we hear a lot about the importance of teaching the alphabet to our kids and to reading to and along with our children. But I think one of the biggest pieces that gets missed in tips to parents, it's not in a lot of articles or like coaching pieces, but it's phonemic awareness. And phonemic awareness is really the underpinning of early literacy success phoneme means sound. And so it's really just discriminating between sounds and manipulating and playing with sounds. Before a student begins to decode or sound out words or start to sound out words to be able to spell them, they really need to just practice playing with the sounds. And so I have 3-4 little exercises that I'm going to share that you can do at home. They're ideally for kids in like pre-K through first grade, because that's when they're laying that foundation for everything that comes later. But if you notice that you're working with a child or your own child has some needs in terms of reading the sounds in words or spelling the sounds in words, these are some things that you can do with them as well. These are easy peasy. They don't involve any materials really. So you can do them in the car while you're cooking dinner, whatever. So the first one is rhyme time. And that's really just teaching your child what rhyme is through play. Like Dr. Kirkland said, you start off with Matt, have your kids say sat, the next person around the dinner table says flat, whatever it is, just keeping that rhyme pattern going. And nonsense words are absolutely okay. So you see it says zat on here. It's just about replicating the pattern, and you can play with as your kid grows saying, is that a real word or a made up word? And you might even uncover some vocabulary words. Vat would go in here. It's a simple word to spell, but it's not a word that most kids know. It's kind of a nuanced vocabulary word. So then that's a teaching opportunity, right? When you start playing with the pieces of sounds and words, you can also do these say-in swaps. So bullets 2 and 3. Really, again, you're just focusing on sounds. None of this is written, and you're not talking about letters. So you're just saying, like, what's the first sound you hear in can? And you want your kid to say k. What if we took off the k and put on, what would we have? So saying an. And then what if we put on the beginning of an? What would we have? Man. And it really can be, it feels very game-like. It can be joyful in the car, on a walk, whatever. Doing the same thing with ending sounds. So like, what's the last sound you hear in sit? What if we take the t off? What do we have? So you want your kid to say sit. What if we put a P at the, see, I did it. We don't want to name those letters. That can be the trickiest part. So what if you put p at the end? What's the new word? Sip. And then trying that same strategy with vowels, short vowels. So what sound do you hear in the middle of the word pin? You hear I. What if we took out the I and put in a? What would happen? And that's pan. So really, they might seem pretty simple, but they're great for young kids for, like I said, priming that early literacy and thinking about and manipulating playing with sounds.
Yeah, that's great.
Man.
Yeah, that's really dope.
About to play around with this with Jonah.
Yeah, no.
And all my little nieces and nephews.
So I have a follow-up question, because I honestly, I think that it's really great, getting kids reading early. What are some of your tips for parents to, I guess, kind of keep them interested in, kids interested in reading, right? Because you got boys and they'll start to learn, but then somewhere along the line they kind of lose maybe that love of reading. So like, do you have any tips for parents to kind of like keep them engaged, or routines to kind of keep them reading and developing?
Absolutely, 100%. So I have a 9-year-old boy and a 10-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl. So I definitely feel you there. Choosing books that your kids love, and really just getting them to try a variety of different books. I know it can be hard right now, but when libraries open again, we're just cruising through Amazon and checking some things out. Epic Books has some great free online libraries. So really just trying a variety of things and reading with and to your child. It can be really enjoyable for a kid. And actually, they can just explore themes and ideas that are above what they can read themselves, but it frees their mind to do that like heavy cognition if you're doing the reading. So, a balance. They read a little bit, you read a little bit. But reading with your kid and to your kid, research says that we should read to children until they're 13 years old. And I noticed that as my son started, doing bedtime on his own, we fell off on that a little bit. So like you said, put it somewhere in your routine and keep it there, because kids of all ages up and, through middle school really can benefit from those great reading routines and being together with books that you love.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
going to definitely post this up as well, I guess, on our website. So people have access to this. So.
Oh, perfect. All the boxes on the right are live links for some videos and lists for doing those like rhyme games and things.
Excellent.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Kristen. We'll get this posted, and appreciate you being on the show tonight.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So we are gonna.
That was real helpful. I did not know that 3 kids are that long.
I know the 3 of you got kids right in that window, so I hope you take
I'm about to start reading today. Come on, you're 17. I'm reading to you too.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're gonna take a quick pause on the ed talk and kind of just get into some social talk, things that are going on right now. And so we want to intro our next guest. This year, for the first time, Sommer Woods stepped into the election process and as a result captured media attention. She was asked to utilize her many years of experience with logistics and city planning to bring order to what seemed to be obnoxious partisan behavior outside the TCF Center.
We have 134 spots for each group. 134 Republicans, partisan, 134 Democrat, partisan, 134 nonpartisan. That is the max, okay? Right now, we are at 268 Democrat partisans. We are at 227 Republican partisan, and we're at 75 nonpartisan. So at this point, we are not letting any more affiliations to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. And we only have spots for about 52 more people in non-partisanship group.
What about the people who did not sign out?
What
about the people who did not sign out?
Everybody stop. So at the end of the day, this is where we are. You're over the number regardless. It might be 2, 3, I'm not gonna argue that. If you are a non-partisan person, that you have a non-partisanship affiliation, I need for you all, hold on.
What about the people who did not
For
sign out?
those that are the non-partisan affiliation, I need for you just to form a line. If you are not with If you are not with a non-partisan affiliation, I need for you to back up off the door.
What about
So
the
if you
people
are
who
Republican
signed out?
or Democrats, back up off the door.
With that being said,
Let's get it.
Let's bring in Sommer Woods.
What's up, Sommer?
So BMEA and everybody watching, please welcome Sommer Woods to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm beautiful. I'm blessed. It's good to see you, brothers. I was in the back like, oh, look at these black men doing their thing. I love it.
We appreciate that. So we want to, before we jump into all of the questions we want to bring you back to that moment. Obviously, we saw about a minute and a half of what was going on, but can you just really set the scene for what that moment was like for you?
It's funny because I'm like laughing now, but that day I was so pissed off. It was a lot, right? So, you see pictures and you've heard stories of like the angry white mob, but to be in the midst of it, it was a lot. I had a lot of emotions just because it was frustrating that we were going through this, that people felt as if they can actually try to intimidate us in terms of the vote, really, just literally within the premise of, hey, we just feel as if you guys are not doing what's right, and we're going to come in and invoke our perception, our reality into something that clearly, as you all have seen play out, that's not even true. So it was a lot of emotions that were running high that day, a lot.
So was that maxed out fed up summer, or was there more room there?
Listen, it's so funny because I had an interview, a couple interviews afterwards, and in one of the interviews, I said that we knew what they were doing to be intentional. Right. They wanted us to pop off, right? Like they literally came there with the intention of being an agitator within the space, and quite honestly, I had to check myself. So it's always so interesting because you hear stories where people say, I'm not my ancestor, I put my hand, like I hate those sayings, right? Because the idea in trying to say that that our ancestors, if they didn't or did not think, they didn't react the way that we thought, that was a perfect example, right? Like to have the resiliency to withhold based off of how they were talking, the way that they were yelling, their actions, the way that they just invaded your personal space. It took a lot of resistance, and I think that's what people think. So that wasn't the total max, because the max was I was gonna probably start, but it was the max before I got to the point of having to call some people down. Like, for real, we about to do? Oh, okay.
Appreciate that, and of course we appreciate you showing as much restraint as you did. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, outside of this incident, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Who is Sommer Woods?
So, I'm a community builder. I believe I'm a Detroiter through and through. I rock my D. I rock my D everywhere. I've been in the D for a few years, and I went to HBCU down in Alabama, came back. Was living in the South for a few years and then came back. So I have been in the event management and community engagement space. I've always been a community builder, starting off in the sports industry, worked on Super Bowl, worked for the PGA Tour, had a very interesting non-traditional path, and then segued into the public sector, working as an appointee for Mayor Dave Bean, when he was the mayor of the city of Detroit, and then went on to work in public transportation with M1 Rail, which is a public-private partnership. And so now currently I am back in my entrepreneurship space, which I'll be talking a little bit more in next year, which I'm excited about, but going back into the world of entrepreneurship, but it'll still be within the community building space for sure though.
Sweet.
Excellent. So before I get to my actual question, just how did you get involved with the election process? I guess, like, how did you end up in that exact spot? Were you just literally over the logistics for the whole, I guess, counting campaign at TCF? Or
yeah. So the funny thing about it is, I know you guys. I don't know if you guys have followed the the election process from August, but in August in Detroit, we had some things that needed to be worked on, right? And instead of talking about the problem, I was like, how can I be a part of the solution? So I signed up to be a poll worker. Like I've always, every time I've gone to the poll, I see all the seasoned saints, all the sisters in there holding it down, trying to get stuff together. And I said, you know what, I'm going to start working, the polls and being a part of it. And what I saw was there's a lot of things that need to be changed, that we could be a part of the change. I started to be a poll worker. So I trained to be at the receiving board, which is basically the station where all the ballots come in and you verify them. And so I did all the training to be a supervisor for the receiving board. And this is going to be my first time working on the back end of it. The interesting thing was I received a phone call from Daniel Baxter, which is actually a brother who was brought in to assist Janice Winfrey with this election. And Daniel and I actually attend church together. And I run logistics for our church out of the office of the pastor. And so he said, hey, I know this is something you do. We really are trying to figure out with COVID, how are we going to move all of these people within enough time with COVID, social distancing, not being able to get on the elevator, because we have to start counting at 7 a.m. So we're going to have them come in for that hour and a half. How can you help us to move? And so that was my goal. My goal was just to make sure that our workers and staff and those that were the true MVPs inside were getting to their location in enough time. And so that's how I got pulled in that role. And then it ended up just after, we did our part, we were supposed to leave, go on the count, but we can see the energy was shifting, that we ended up, staying around to make sure that it didn't get too hectic, because we started hearing calls and we knew that the Republican Party was sending out a just an all call for people to come down. So then we just basically stepped in and stayed in that space.
Got you. Mm-hmm. And just as a slight follow up, because, before this show, I don't know if you were watching it, but, you know, Rudy Giuliani is here in the state of Michigan now, trying to, you know, keep this charade going. But maybe as someone who was there, can you set the record straight? Did you see any, like, what did you see? Was anything illegal that you saw? Who was being aggressive, you know, to the, not just in that one scene, but just inside to those people who were counting ballots? What did you see on the inside?
I mean, the people that were on the inside, like I said, are the real MVPs because they maintained professionalism. They maintained doing what needed to be done to make sure the vote was counted, right? They were literally in there protecting our democracies. As a part of this process, and that's the interesting thing, I just don't think a lot of us, you know, even when you think about us as an adults, right? Like you think about it, we haven't really had conversations about civic understanding for years. So sometimes you start talking about the three branches of the government, and some people are like, what? Like, that's our age, right? Because we're not that engaged in the process, which goes to the point of this election process, right? So I didn't really know until I was there. You know, I kind of knew. But there is a part of democracy to protect democracy is that you have a representative that can be at the table, that there's 134 precincts in the city of Detroit. Each table per law, to make sure that it's fair, you have one Republican, one Democrat, and one nonpartisan. Now, the nonpartisan is all relative, right? Because a lot of times Republican groups, as well as Democrat groups, they create nonpartisan groups, but they're not really, their agenda is basically, you know, on something else. So in that particular instance, on Tuesday, which was election day, we didn't have that issue. We had the challengers that came out, Republicans, Democrats, everybody was playing fair, everything was fine. A part of what democracy is. When the night started to close in and Trump saw that he was getting ready to lose, that's when the energy started to fester. That's when it elevated with social media that the different Michigan GOP representatives sent out a call to action. Everybody transcend on TCF. Now, mind you, in order to be a challenger, you're supposed to be trained to be a challenger, okay? They tell you the do's, the don'ts, what to look out for, what not to look out for. And we literally had people that next morning, on Wednesday morning after election day, that showed up that did not understand the process, that was coming in, you know, basically questioning the process. We had people that was at the table that was like, the supervisors that were like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not, yes, it is. I mean, they were berating people. They were talking about them. They called people stupid. You don't know what the people that was counting the votes. You don't know what you're doing. We had somebody that had to be kicked out because he was talking about protecting his amendment to have a gun. You don't know if I have a gun in here. I mean, totally intimidating the process. We had people that you're not supposed to record. You're not supposed to do any recording. They were in there recording. They were chanting, stop the vote. This is fraud. Like, they literally came in there to be agitators. So Giuliani and a lot of the other Republicans that even within our good state of Michigan, that people feel as if we are above the Mason-Dixie line, but we nothing but up south, right? That they are still outside of Giuliani. Let's be clear. In the Michigan legislation, this is not going to end. They're going to continue to find ways to suppress the vote. And this should be a wake-up call for everybody to understand that. Like, Giuliani is absolutely coming to be a part of this Trump thing, but don't get it twisted. Michigan Republicans, they own one now, or they're at the legislation table talking about us. Not talking about other cities, other counties that had issues, but talking about Detroit, a very black city.
Man, Sommer, I think this is like, you know, we went from like you was on 10 to like this is serious, right? And my whole mood, if you watching my, I'm like, what I need to do, you know, like this is important work. And you know, you answered the question I was going to ask you, because I think what you were displaying is the importance of sort of like being literate around the election, right? Being literate around your voting rights. And I don't know if people haven't caught that documentary on what's that on Amazon Prime with Stacey Abrams. Man, powerful, right? Yeah. So I want to commend you. You know, another black woman who's coming to save the day. And as a black male organization, we stand with you. We stand for democracy, for what's right. And I just want to thank you for standing up in the midst of COVID, right, and holding it down. I love you. Like, I ain't answering that question. You hush, right? Like, I love the energy. I appreciate you on behalf of like every person who went out and voted legally, which is what all of us did. Like, thank you for your work and for your continued work and educating us today. So I appreciate you taking the time out to be with us today, and continue to do the good work. We're here with you.
I appreciate it.
We're here with you. Hey, you know how to find. I'm coming. You need me to come down there? You let me know.
Listen, real talk, Doc. Myself and another brother, actually Jerome Buffington, who was there serving to protect us in our space. We've been brainstorming about some ideas because, for ourselves, we learned a lot of stuff, right? And I think, again, we have to understand that truly, there's a brother who's an educator. His name is Baba Jamal Jordan, and he said it right. A lot of times we don't even think about this is literally our today's civil rights. Right? Mm-hmm. Being a part is not just about voting. It's about protecting the vote that they are trying to suppress. And it's not just in 2024. It's next year, the year after that. Every year we have an election. And we do have to become more involved in making sure that our vote is protected because they're coming for it, for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank
you very much.
We appreciate you,
Summer.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Man, good stuff. Good stuff. I'm fired up.
Oh yeah, I'm good. What's so funny? Y'all know Sarah, my wife. She was like, I want to go work the polls. And I kind of like, because Sarah just said she want to do 50 million things, but no, there's some truth to that. Like we have to become, we have to be on the front lines to like Summer said, protect democracy.
Absolutely.
And just hearing this conversation, it really just kind of inspired me to.
Me too.
It's more than just voting. It's about protecting the vote too.
Right.
Yeah, and also educating the kids in high school on that. Like right before they get into the voting age, I don't think we do a good enough job of making the importance of being politically active for our kids. I mean, tell them to vote, but there's a lot more to it. Just as a community, definitely.
Absolutely.
All right, so we got one more guest left, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So
Mike, go ahead and intro.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, BMEA, we've started an early careers teachers fellowship, right, to support, engage, and develop new teachers coming into the space. Black male educators. It's important that we get more of them to come into the education profession, but it's also important that we give them the tools to be successful. So we got one of the fellows that we have this year coming on, and he's just going to talk a little bit about his experience and why he got into education. So without further ado, we have Devon Ellis.
Welcome, Devon.
What's going on, sir?
What's going on? All right?
Yes, sir.
So
last time I spoke to you, man, my team was getting smashed in by Michigan State, man. So I don't know if I really should be talking to you right now, brother.
Gotta be on the right team, man. Gotta be on the right team.
I'm messing with y'all, man. Hope everybody's good. Hope everybody had a great holiday.
Absolutely.
Staying safe out here and stuff like that. So
good.
Appreciate that, Devon. So obviously we know your name, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found yourself getting into education.
Well, I mean, everybody's got a story. I was talking to my wife about this before I even wanted to come on with you guys. I'm like, should I be transparent or should I, sugarcoat my answer or, she said, just tell it the way it is. I'm like, well, all right. Basically, back in the early 2000s, I was between jobs, and my wife, she's part of Head Start, and I was, like I said, I was between jobs, and an opportunity came up and said, why don't you go ahead and try to be a teacher? And I honestly didn't even think I even wanted to be a teacher or anything like that at all. This is me like in my early 20s and stuff like that. So I'm just like fresh out of high school and stuff like that. Wasn't going to college. I actually went to like WC3 and went to like a couple classes. Make a long story short, when I got into Head Start, when I had those opportunities, it was great, man. It was something that I just really wanted to just excel at, and just be a part of, masters, bachelors, all that other stuff. I got the opportunity to come work for DPS. It's a great opportunity. It steps in the process of where I want to be. I enjoy teaching. I love what I do. I love my kids. I love teaching every day. When they had those aha moments, is just like such a great feeling to have, man. Especially when you teaching like third and fourth graders, it's just a wonderful thing, brother.
That's excellent. I used to teach fourth grade and fifth grade myself, so the elementary years are definitely great.
Yes,
so as Mike said, I know you in the fellowship, so talk to us about how that's been so far. We're, I think a couple months into it. So how's it been for you?
Fellowship has been good. Just being able to talk with like-minded people, it's a great opportunity to network. It's a great opportunity to pick people's brains, share similar stories, try to see where you can, get better at as far as being an educator. Like I was telling my wife, also, steel sharpens steel. So when you in the same room with people, doing the same things that you're doing, you can't do nothing but want to just elevate your game and, get to where you want to be. So it's been a great experience, man. I'm glad that, DPS introduced it to us. I'm glad I signed up for it. And, hopefully when everything is said and done, I can get one of those T-shirts right there. And,
We got you.
Right now, I'll have that on there right now, man, so.
Just send me your size, brother. We got you.
We got you.
Yeah, he got you.
Sure.
So last question for you, man. Like what, you talked about the fellowship, the meanings, being in a space with the like-minded people. What else would you like to get out? Like what is some whether it's pedagogical, instructional practice, what would you like to get out of the fellowship going forward?
It really just comes down to just having the chance to, because I'm new at teaching early elementary education and stuff like that. Everything that I'm learning like as I go. I'm going to school doing the process, but there's nothing like having the opportunity to learn hands-on. It's the difference between learning in college and learning and taking those same skills and translating it to the classroom, and not having the experience. I'm learning on the fly pretty much. And if it wasn't for the people who I work with at my school, taking me under their wing, showing me different things and, taking what they showed me and just flipping it into my own style, it's been a very interesting experience. And like I said, I'm glad I was able to be a part of this. I'm definitely learning a lot on the book that you guys presented to us, a month ago. I'm learning a lot from having the conversations that we have when we break into small groups. It's just been great, man. I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Good stuff, man. We appreciate you, man. We appreciate you being our first BMEA fellow to come join us. We appreciate it. Hey, you made history. You're the first one to join the podcast. So we'll thank you for stepping up to the plate to continue to grind and continue. We're here as a support system. So you know how to find us, and we'll see you in a few weeks. We'll talk to you before then. We'll see you in a few weeks. So thank you, brother. Have a good one.
I appreciate it.
Right.
Take it easy.
All right. That was the last of our marathon of guests tonight. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Look, whether you wanted to be, your soul to be satisfied through ed talk or politics and civics or learning more about the teacher fellowship, you got that tonight. So we again want to thank all of our guests who joined us. We want to remind everybody to follow us if you're not already on social media, Facebook, Instagram, BMEA of Michigan. This will be on our YouTube page too. Subscribe, get those notifications on your phone when we drop the podcast, share with your friends, all of that, comment, ask questions, all of those things. Our next podcast will be December 16th. We look forward.
I'm hyped about that one too.
Yeah, we're working on this very special.
I'm hyped on that one too.
Yeah.
Good.
Jeremy, can we do like a holiday theme for that one? We could talk about it. We could talk about it afterwards, but something maybe a little festive.
Talk about the best holiday songs.
Yeah, so maybe Kurt, you do some sweaters, ugly sweaters.
Maybe we'll wear some ugly sweaters or something.
Oh yeah, I know.
Okay.
I got real excited.
Something like that.
I got real excited about the ugly sweater. Okay.
Look, we got to come festive next on the 16th. Gentlemen, any last words for the viewers?
I just want to say thanks for tuning in, and we hope you're enjoying it. share this episode, share the previous episodes, because I feel like we're giving out bi-weekly PD, that's, really feeding the soul and the mind for educators and just everybody. So that's it for me.
Appreciate it. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Take care. Be safe. Mask up.
Yes. Be safe. Mask up. We still wear masks.
Still wear masks. You are now listening
to the Black Male Educators Alliance podcast.
Lifting our voices.
Lifting our voices.